All right, everyone. Hey, guess what? Lindsey Graham is a neocon Republican. Now, of course, when he had his magical post-John McCain keeling over conversion, I was like, haha, I wonder how long that's going to last. Oh, even it's basically broken clock with Lindsey Graham. He says something fiery towards the Democrats, says they're wasting their time on impeachment or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay. Any fucking idiot knows that, unless they're a Democratic partisan, I suppose, or they actually believe the Russia bullshit still for some reason. But Lindsey Graham is still a warmongering neocon, and now he's showing his true colors. This is one of the reasons I can't be a Republican, because you have too many Mitt Romneys and Lindsey Grahams still in the party. For every Rand Paul, or for every Donald Trump, someone who's sane, you have a Lindsey Graham or a Jeff Flake, somebody like that. You know, someone who's obsessed with religious moralism or somebody who wants to go to war with every country. So now Lindsey Graham comes out and says, well, maybe we should invade Venezuela. And I'm thinking to myself, like, look, John McCain is dead. He can no longer hold over your head your obvious proclivities. And nobody cares now anyway, even if you're a Republican from, South Carolina or wherever the fuck he's from. Nobody cares that you're gay, Lindsey. It doesn't matter anymore. John McCain's gone. The boogeyman can't hurt you anymore. It's like fucking, you don't have to pretend to, I hope it's just pretend, to be completely clueless on foreign policy anymore like you did when John McCain always sat next to you and looked over at you whenever you were asked a question. It was kind of obvious, like, hey, Lindsey, you better back me up on Iran. You better back me up on Venezuela. You better back me up on... Yeah, let's go invade China. That'll be a good idea. That'll be next. We're going out for Chinese tonight, John. Yeah. Lindsey Graham is a real disappointment. He's a really funny dude. I mean, he says some funny shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, he can be entertaining, but there's nothing entertaining about war, and I think there are too many people being too flippant about the idea of invading Venezuela or taking any sort of military action. I cut it off at, hey, if you wanted to drop a bunch of weapons in the country and let things sort themselves out, that'd be pretty funny, because then the people there could decide for themselves which side wins, because they'd be, shooting against the other side. Why don't we just fucking do that? Lindsey Graham gets his explosive footage, and footage of street-to-street combat and stuff. People be smuggling that shit out of the country so he can get his boner up by seeing people suffer and die. And it'll actually be for a good cause, because the Venezuelan people will be fighting for their own rights. It's wrong for the United States to simply weaponize itself every time there's some economic problem in the world. That's really what this is about. People like Graham, they're like, oh, well, we've got to free the people from evil Maduro. Okay, into the captivity of who then? Guaido, another socialist? I mean, he's not going to tolerate being displaced and shoved aside now that he's lit the fire of revolution to begin with. He'll end up fighting against us even more than Maduro, and he'll have more support if Maduro ends up ousted. If he has to flee, to Russia or something like that, and he looks weak, and those people rally around the Venezuelan nationality itself, they'll all back Guaido. The problem is, of course, if Lindsey Graham were sane, he would understand socialism is at the root of their problems. So it's not going to solve anything. Essentially, you have to go in order for Venezuela to stabilize economically, here's what has to happen. Foreign investors have to pour into the country and build a bunch of shit and improve oil rigs and build infrastructure and so forth. This is going to require mainly a lot of brute labor for Venezuelans and basic low-level clerical work and shit like that. They're not immediately going to see any benefit at all. In that interim period, you've got two problems. The bilking of Venezuela, literally basically Maduro's not even wrong when he says this, the robbing of their oil revenue. Some of it would definitely leave the country. That wouldn't look good. It would be an optics loss. Number two, in that interim period, you could have a counter-revolution. People would say, well, things aren't better under... They'll blame capitalism, even though it won't be. It'll be interventionism. Things are even worse now than they were under Maduro. Oh, I long for the good old days of eating cats and shit like that. And you could have people rise up against the new government. Then you enter a death spiral. All that infrastructure gets destroyed anyway. They force out the companies. They have a maybe they have a communist revolution. Like, not even just socialism, but they go to flat-out communism. Maybe fascists take control. How the fuck are we supposed to know what kind of group could possibly get involved? Guaido's not exactly an Enlightenment classical liberal that wants actual reform in the country. He just wants Maduro out and an end to the street violence. But what solutions does he have other than, hey, maybe we'll allow Trump to trade with us or something. We'll work with the United States and not piss him off too much. That's not immediately going to solve the problems there, and invading Venezuela is not going to make the situation better. It would be better if an organic revolution is sparked there, whether through subversion of some sort or some organic event happening. Maduro's troops go just a little bit too far. They crush a group of orphans with a tank accidentally, and all of a sudden 1 million people flood the streets. The military starts to crack apart and defect or something. That could happen. Or maybe the CIA does get involved at long last. I don't think that they've been subverting them. To begin with, I think that the socialists there have done a good job of doing that themselves. But regardless of what happens, it shouldn't involve U.S. military intervention. It's a crazy idea. And of course, the neocons have been talking about that for years. Pat Robertson wanted to assassinate Hugo Chavez, and we've had, I think Romney wanted to get involved to an extent. And I think recently has sort of echoed that as well. You'll see, Mitt Romney never takes a definitive stance on anything, though. If you were to ask him about Venezuela, he'd probably be like, well, Maduro's a bad guy, maybe we should do something about it. I'm not calling for invasion or anything, like Lindsey Graham, but we need to do something about it, take a more proactive role. He'd use a bunch of weasel words because he's a used car salesman. He's really good at doing that sort of thing. That's basically Mitt Romney's MO. With Lindsey Graham, no, he's proud to tell you that he wants to see people suffer, I suppose. Poor Lindsey Graham. And his makeup is starting to flake too, because he's getting to that age where his skin gets all flaky and stuff, and so it's more and more conspicuous than it used to be, I suppose. It's really funny, kind of sad at the same time. I mean, he's a smart dude, but I mean, he's either clueless on foreign policy, actually thinks this is a good idea, or he's still being controlled by some neocon that has him afraid of being outed or something. It's probably what it's about. Can we just fucking stop pretending to be dumb on this one and just, sort of call it how it is? He's a log cabin Republican. For a long time, that would have been the political death knell. He comes from a red state where it's less tolerated. He wants to keep his job. I'm assuming that people used that for leverage over him. He just had some confidant who spills the beans to John McCain. He's like, oh, hey, I heard you're planning to vote against this war. I don't think that's a good idea, Lindsey. That's about all. Peace out.